So I'm just going to minimize my windows and find a version of NetBeans that I'd like to use. This is going to be a assignment 5 prototype, right? So this is going to be assignment 5 prototype, which we will use. While this NetBeans is loading and everything, let's go back to the description of the homework. This description here in the user interface and business requirements section, it essentially tells us what classes to use and roughly speaking what controls should we use on our views. You can make your own choices. It's okay. You can tweak this to make it more interesting. For instance, you could, instead of labels on the main view of New Year's resolutions, we could have tried using like a grid or a table control that comes with swing gadgets. But for now, let's just stick with the labels. And of course, we're going to be using the buttons. That's natural. And of course, we're going to be using the controller and the data object. And here is our next section, which outlines the requirements, right? So we must have these views and we must have the data. Business class, that's what it's referred to. And we say that none of the views can talk directly to the business class, right? No direct communication. We have to pass all communication, all interaction through the controller class. The benefit for this type of architecture, like I said, is that your business model can change anytime. And anytime, you know, your users are asking to make an enhancement in terms of what they can do or store or, you know, make it relevant to their business, it'd be affecting the business tier. But those changes may not necessarily be have an instant, impact on the way those views are organized. And vice versa. The changes made in the presentation tier, which could be endless number of tweaks and other types of suggestions by your users, but your data tier can stay the same without any modification. So clearly, this kind of disposition, distribution of responsibilities in our application makes it very transparent and very well organized to withstand the demands for those types of modifications. Also, the controller class has another a positive notion to it. If someone is asking you to start a new use case, ideally, all that you need to do is to create a controller class, right? An instance of the controller class, and tell it to start the use case. So it's basically the controllers can be made responsible for creating the default type of view and also creating and populating some data and eventually displaying that data and so forth and so forth. So typically the controller is a high-level, well-recognized class in the system, so that every use case that you formally define in your system can be accessed by the controller class and not by a random method in your main view or your data object. So the discipline is to use the controller to do the high-level communication with your use case. So maybe you have a menu someplace which says display New Year resolutions, and that method will then create the controller, and the controller could potentially create the default view and, like I said, populate the data. Yes, question?
So for each use case, it's just an instance of the controller. It's not a separate controller class.
So if we had another use case, perhaps to print a report of some kind, right? So this is user interaction with the system, the history view, which happened to be part of the same use case. But if there was another use case in the system, great question, right? So if there was another use case in the system, which would be something like print report, right? Another use case, print report. Yes, I would, we should normally create a separate controller, print report class, and it should be right here, and it should have its own user interface window, right? And it should have maybe access to the same data object, right? So for each use case, we have a separate class, separate controller class. A great question, right? Because this is yet another dimension in which we can grow in terms of what we can add to our application, right? So we can, besides adding new functionality to our business tier and adding new facilities, new possibilities to the presentation tier, which make it supposedly makes it more convenient for the user. In addition to that, we can introduce just brand new use cases, right? With brand new interfaces and different data processing steps, but it may or may not use the same data, right? In our simplistic application here, it could be just a single data object in the business tier. Of course, this is like a little toy application, but all components which we're about to create within this prototype for homework assignment 5 is very, very much scalable to a larger, commercial grade projects or applications.